Welcome to Waterstones, first of all.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, first of all, creating what's going to be a series of books, drawing on Yoruba myth and history. Why? Why was that the way that you... Because it's an allegory and it's very much about things that we're dealing with today. So why did you decide to write sort of fantasy rather than a more contemporary novel, I suppose? Yeah,
so it's funny, especially because I'll get this question in different forums and I never know how to answer, because I think for so many writers, it's like Inception. There's so many layers as to why. So I would say the fantasy aspect it's probably because of J.K. Rowling, because once I got Harry Potter, I couldn't do stories without magic. And so even when I would try and write stories without magic as a kid, then it'd be like, okay, and then she got a magical knife, and then she got to the power of lightning. And so it's like, I knew, all right, this is what you love. Yeah. And part of it for me too is like, if you're creating something, it's like, I don't want to write about like, oh, I'm an adult and I have to do taxes and like now someone got murdered. And I was like, that's not very fun for me to write about. So it's like, if I had the chance to do anything, let's do something magical. But every story idea I had before that, everything that inspired that, they were very hollow. So it'd be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if a girl could shoot lightning? Wouldn't it be cool if this person could fly? So it was just about like, wouldn't it be cool? And I didn't really have more to say, and I didn't really have more to be challenged by and inspired by. So when I discovered the Orisha, and for me, I thought they were like these African gods and goddesses. And I had never seen anything like that. So I didn't even know that African gods and goddesses existed. And when I discovered that the Orisha were West African, that they were not just West African, they were Nigerian, that they weren't just Nigerian, they were Yoruba, it was like being inspired by something real and personal for the first time. And then with writing about what's going on today and making an allegory for the Black experience, that wasn't my intention. I was planning on writing about police brutality. I knew I had to just work through all the really complicated emotions that come from living in a society where you're seeing that every day. I think that's what people don't understand. We don't just have to be afraid of dying. We have to be afraid of being physically assaulted. We have to be afraid of being tased. We have to be afraid of being sexually assaulted. And we see these stories. We see it happening constantly. And it's always like, okay, that's me. You don't feel safe. You don't feel distant. You're like, there's very little that stops that from being me. So I knew I had these two stories I wanted to write, this one big West African fantasy, this one about police brutality. And like one of my best friends at the time helped me realize, oh, I think it's the same book. And I was just like, oh. And there was like the light bulbs and the firecrackers and like I think every writer maybe has like that one light bulb moment in the book, because otherwise books are just very hard work. And it's just like pulling out your hair and then like new white hairs grow and you pull those out. So you only get like one magical everything comes together moment. And for me it was that, because I was like, oh, these things that I want to talk about in this world that I want to play in, like this is the story I want to write. And
of course it's not isolated. We've got, Marlon James is writing a fantasy series which again is drawing on Black culture. We've seen a huge success of things like Black Panther. What is it like for you as a writer of colour to see Black culture being absolutely sort of, swallowed up by people all around the world?
Amanda Sternberg, a couple years ago, said, what would America look like if we loved Black people as much as we love Black culture? So it's like we're actually used to seeing, like you see like Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston and Beyonce and Rihanna, and you see people rocking cornrows, and like we see our culture celebrated, but a lot of times when it's on us, it's like, no, that's not okay. So from a storytelling perspective, like when I was writing this book, Black Panther didn't exist. We didn't even have a trailer. So I was like, I wanted to create something like Black Panther. I wanted to just an epic story with all Black characters that wasn't, it's weird because I didn't want it to fully be about them being Black. I wanted them to just get to be human beings because we are just human beings. I wanted to do both because we are just human beings, but then we also have these complex relationships with how the world sees us. So putting that in the book and having it embraced, especially abroad, that means a lot, especially in other languages. Like I remember having conversations in the Netherlands. I can't even say my book name correctly there. It's like Bloed in Benderen. That's not right, but that's as close as I can get. So I can't even say it. Yet they've read this whole book and we're sitting there talking about police brutality. They don't even have guns in that country. So that's when I was just like, oh, this is beautiful. And seeing it on a larger scale, you know, with Black Panther opening up doors and hopefully stories like CBB and like Marlon James' new book, like it's exciting because I realize now that these things really do change the society we live in, that art and education and youth, to me, like those are the elements for how do we move and change the way people feel and the way people think and the way people view others. How do we create empathy? Like, to me, these are some of the biggest tools, if not the biggest tools we have. So it's exciting as a creator, but more as a human.
This is a first book in a series.
Yeah.
Can we find out anything from you? Can we tease any information from you about where the series might be going?
Yes. So I know where the series is going. Mentally, book 1 came to me very quickly. Book 3, I was like, oh my God, here's what happens. It's going to be epic. Book 2, I was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I was so stressed while I was like writing book 1 because I was like, I need to know because I don't have a lot of time for book 2 already. And when it came to me, I was like, okay, we're good. So I can't give you specifics, but what I can say is like, I don't believe in a bridge book. Like, I am more excited about this adventure than CBB. I'm a bit biased though because I've lived with it so long and I think everything is boring. I'm always like, oh, that's completely expected. And they're like, you don't understand. Everyone else isn't thinking about this about 24/7 for multiple years. So I was like, that's a good point. But yeah, I'm excited because now that I don't have to introduce so much, there's more room to play and like it's a different adventure and so much happens. So much happens. I'm so excited. I will say there's a lot more Rowan though.
Okay.
Which is important to a lot of people. Yeah. And that's really funny because I am in love with Rowan, but I was like, oh, because I am, literally everyone is. Even Fox was like, is there going to be more Rowan? And I was like, wow, okay, now we're good. We're good, guys. Don't you worry. I got you.
Well, we gave this book to children to sort of help judge the Waterstones Children's Book Prize. And when I went to speak to them and film with them, I was amazed that the range of pupils in this school who had read this book, boys, girls, children of all colours and creeds and races and sort of cultures, they had all found something to identify with. And I think part of it was that idea of magic. And maybe that, as you say, that does come from Harry Potter. But they were similarly wanting book 2.
Yeah.
They are ready.
People are like, where is, or I get a lot of messages, like earnest messages of people making their cases for why I should give it to them now. And I was like, I don't think you understand. It doesn't exist. Like what exists now is not something you want to read. I was like, I'm not keeping it from you. Like I am making it in real time. That's why I post about it so you can see it and not get stressed and be like, what are you doing? I was like, I promise you I'm doing it. I was like, look at my crazy eyes. I was like, look at my dark circles. Like I promise, like I'm not in La La Land. Like I am working because I want it to be this big thing, but I love it, especially because it's so meaningful. The cover especially, like when I see like a little white boy in Texas, like holding it up, like where's book 2? And I'm like, this is such a beautiful image.
We can't wait for the second book. So thank you.
Thank you. Especially because the Waterstone has been such a huge supporter of this book in the UK, and like, yeah, I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the readers, but I know that doesn't just start with the readers, and that doesn't just start with the book. It starts with like the people who get them the book. So really, like, thank you guys for everything you've done.
It's been our pleasure. Now off you go back to work and finish it off.
I know people are like, what are you doing? They're like, come to my country, but finish the book. And so I'm like, decide.